Anybody who says that the Prophet ﷺ can read and write is a kafir. Very interesting thing happened in the 4th century of the Hijrah related to the incident of Hudaybiyah. And that is what? A huge controversy erupted in Andalus over the fact or the question, did the Prophet ﷺ read and write or not? And one of the most famous scholars of Andalus, his name is Abu Walid Al Baji, great scholar of Maliki fame. Every faqih and every Maliki student of knowledge knows this name. He's a very famous Maliki scholar. He's from Andalus. And he wasn't the only one. Abu Dhar Al-Harawi and the other one as well, I forgot his name. A number of scholars, they followed him in this. They began to claim that the Prophet ﷺ can read and write. And this spread amongst the masses. And other scholars got involved and they said, anybody who says that the Prophet ﷺ can read and write is a kafir. You know the problem of calling different people kafir? It's not just in Pakistan. It actually happens all over, right? It's a common thing. And it happens all the way, even in Andalusia, that they said anybody who says that the Prophet ﷺ can read and write, he's a kafir. Why? According to the other group, and that's the majority, at least they said that he cannot read and write, and that's also my opinion, he cannot read and write, even though I don't make takfir of Al Baji, but they made takfir of him. And they said, why? Why do you think they made takfir of him? It what? It's mentioned in the Quran. What is mentioned in the Quran? An-Nabi al-Ummi, the unlettered prophet. So they said anybody who says he can read and write has rejected the Quran, he's a kafir. So there was an actual court case that was brought against Abu Walid Al Baji, who was the most famous scholar of his time. And the Sultan had to get involved. He was brought in front of the Sultan, and he was basically said, look, all of your other ulama are accusing you of being a kafir because you've rejected the Quran, because you say the Prophet can read and write. So he said, I have clear evidences that he can read and write. He said, what? Number one evidence, hadith in Sahih Bukhari, incident of Hudaybiyah. That when Ali ibn Abi Talib refused to erase Muhammad Rasulullah, one version in Bukhari, and this is literally what it says, the Prophet ﷺ took the kitab and he did not, وَلَا يَحْسِنَ الْكِتَابَ, he didn't know how to write. وَكَتَبَ Muhammad ibn Abdullah. So it clearly says he took the book, he didn't, meaning the scroll, and he didn't know how to write, and he wrote Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Because you know the thing of Muhammad Rasulullah, and Ali said, I'm not going to delete that. You know, remember that, right? So the version in Bukhari clearly says he didn't know how to read and write, and he wrote, this is what we have agreed to, and then the hadith goes on. So he said, this is an explicit hadith. He didn't know how to write, and he wrote. They said, how about An-Nabi al-Ummi? He said, An-Nabi al-Ummi was when he became a prophet, before he was a prophet, after he learned how to read and write. So Allah describes him in the early stage. And then the later stage went, there's no reason for him not to read and write, he learned how to read and write. So they said, how about the verse in the Quran? وَمَا كُنْتَ تَتْلُو مِنْ قَبْلِهِ مِنْ كِتَابٍ وَلَا تَخُطُّهُ بِيَمِينِكَ إِذًا لَارْتَابَ الْمُبْطِلُونَ. That you never recited any book before this, nor did you ever write with your right hand. Write with your right hand. وَلَا تَخُطُّهُ بِيَمِينِكَ. And you never wrote with your right hand. So they said this ayah is very clear. He said, this ayah is an evidence for me and against you. Why? Because it says, وَمَا كُنْتَ تَتْلُو مِنْ قَبْلِهِ. From before the revelation of the Quran, you didn't recite a book or write. Which means, مفهوم المخالفة for those who know usul al-fiqh, after the Quran was revealed, you did learn how to read and write. So, and he quoted other evidences. I've already confused you enough, I don't want to confuse you more than this. Believe me, they could not defeat him. They could not. Because he brought, for everything that they said, he brought an evidence. And in the end, the case was dismissed because he had legitimate Quranic evidences and Sunnah evidences. That they could not say that this is kufr. He's not rejecting. And this clearly shows us that you can have some strange opinions and still not be a kafir. And it is up to the ulama. It is up to the ulama. It's not up to the lay people. The lay people do not and are not qualified to decide who's a Muslim and who's not a Muslim. It is up to the ulama, the scholars of theology especially, to know what is kufr and what is not kufr. Right? And the masses should not get involved in deciding who's a kafir and who's not a kafir. This is something the ulama do. So in the end, the case was dismissed, and the position, he held it till he died. But it remained a minority position, and later scholars, they wrote entire treatises on this issue to refute him. And the fact of the matter is that the evidences are mutawatir, that he was a Nabi al-Ummi, that he did not read and write. And as for the version in Bukhari that says he did not know how to read and write, there's two interpretations to, and then he wrote, there's two interpretations. The first of them, and that's a minority opinion as well, he wrote his name only. And they say, most people who don't know how to read and write, they can write their name. This is an opinion. But the second opinion is inshallah the stronger one, because we would like to stick to the Quran when it says An-Nabi al-Ummi, and we would like to stick to the Quran that says that you never wrote with your hand, even though it says min qablihi, but it doesn't mean min ba'dihi you did. Mafhum al-mukhalaf is not a very strong istidlal for those who know usul al-fiqh. And they say the Prophet ﷺ did not write, but he commanded somebody to write, and this is allowed in any language. We say the governor rebuilt the city. In English we'll say the president, well, not the president in this case, especially the government's closed, not going to do anything these days. Let's say the governor rebuilt the highway. Okay? The governor rebuilt the highway. We all understand the governor, God forbid he would actually ever work, but I mean, you know, physically, he's not going to go to the trenches and dig the highway, is he? But when we say the governor rebuilt the highway, what do we mean? He commanded the rebuilding of the highway. Right? It is allowed to speak in this type of language when it's the leader involved. So he took the book, he took the scroll, and he didn't know how to write, but he commanded somebody to write. And so this is the other opinion that is given. Okay, let's leave it to the end, inshallah. In any case, the majority position, which is the safer one in any case, is that he did not know how to read and write.